G'day guys, Graham here with Lisa Hall today. Thank you, Lisa, for coming on and sharing your story.
G'day, Graham. How's things?
Well, thank you. Got another Perth
Pleasure.
person with me. Another Perth person with me today. So, looking forward to having a chat and hearing a bit more about what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it.
Cool. Okay, so just to recap, so you've done 3 flips. You've
hmm
done 3 other renovations for properties that you've held. So you've done essentially six renos,
More or less.
um, more or less. You've also done a rooming house, which you converted into a 6x4, which is
hmm
now being rented out to 6 different tenants.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
you just come and we're just chatting. Then you've got another rooming house, which is hopefully going to be finished next month in January, which is a 6x6. Which, like I said, it's just been built. It's taken a year so far, so going to have 6 tenants and get some passive income from that as well.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. It's been a bit of a journey doing a new build. Haven't done a build for 20 years. So it's been a whole new ball game.
Awesome. Just so we start though, the fun fact, which even I'm a bit curious as to your skill set in juggling, standing on stilts, and what was the other one? Walking a tightrope. How did that all come
Yeah.
about?
Uh, I've always wanted to join the circus, run away as a kid and, explore the world, have a bit of fun. It seemed like a huge adventure. And anyway, I was working for this organisation. It was a charity up in the hills, and a circus came to teach the kids some skills. It was the Parkerville Children's Home, so yeah, the circus came along, and I got roped in and thought, here's my childhood dream coming true, running away to the circus, and yeah, I've got my certificate 1 in circus skills. Good fun.
Awesome. So, how many years has it been since you put those skills into action?
Well, I walk a tightrope every day with all the juggling of properties and everything else, but the practicality of walking a tightrope, it's been a few years.
In a few years. Cool. That's a good story. Not everyone can say they've done that. Alrighty. So, property journey. So, you've been a little bit diverse. Take us back to, because I think you work in what you work for local government, do you?
I
And
work
you're
for a
in
state, yeah.
state government, and so you're
Mm.
involved in what is it exactly that you do?
Well, I do work as a planner, so I'm pretty much involved with
That's
subdivisions
right.
as my bread and
Yeah.
butter. Mm.
Okay. So, was it working in that line of work that sort of spiked your interest in property, or was it just completely no? That
No,
is
not
that not the case?
really. My dad was a builder, so from a tot, I've always been around property. My brother's involved with property, my cousin's a builder, etc. And I had a business building um, aluminium window frames and doors and things like that. So sort of always had a bit of a hand in that space.
Yep.
And yeah, it got to a stage where I was like, well, shit, I need to actually be investing in this space and doing something for myself, not just being on the periphery. So in
Awesome.
2015, I started, I suppose, a proper education program for myself.
Okay. Cool. So 2015, decided, okay, I'm going to get educated. So you went and did a course and got some coaching, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. I had held a property when I was 20 and rented that for a short time. And it didn't really work out. I didn't know anything about depreciation, didn't make any money on it, all those sorts of things. My hubby had a investment property as well. He made a loss because it was the wrong sort of property. So there was all these things going in the back of our head going, there's got to be a better way, and probably a little bit of education would certainly help.
Fair enough. So was that course that you did in 2015, was that the group that I met you through? Or was there another group that you did your first course first? Did you do another
Uh,
course?
no, I went. I'm probably a bit of a property junkie in the education space, so I've done a few different ones,
Yep.
and yeah, you pick up little bits and pieces from all of them.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So, Okay, so 2015, you got started, did a course in that. Did you? What was your first deal? Was it obviously? I'm guessing it was a renovation. Was it a flip or was it a renovated investment property? What was your first one?
So the first one was interstate, sport sight unseen.
Okay.
And yeah, and it was a mortgagee property on the market. And I thought this would actually be a good one. The area was showing, potential growth in the future. Not a lot at the time, um, but yeah, it had the inklings of possibly doing something. So yeah, I made an offer. It got accepted, which was terrific. Um, and it came with sitting tenants, so to speak. And the house was pink, purple, green, every colour under the sun, all the rooms. So I encouraged the tenants to paint it. And with the skill set that I already had, and working with the property manager, we got the property painted and a little bit of maintenance done and things like that. So it was really a hands-off type of renovation. But the colours that I've used there and all the other properties is exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay. So what?
Yeah.
So what state was it in, and what made you choose to go interstate for the first one?
I was quite happy to go in my own state, but I suppose the education had taught me that if the suburb has the right fundamentals, that it was worthwhile looking beyond your back door. I think if you're buying a buy and hold property, you can possibly make an error in thinking that just because you know your particular suburb, that's going to be the best way to buy a property, and it's not necessarily the best one for growth or yield or anything like that. And so I tapped into other people and where they were going, and yeah, did the research basically, and this came up trumps.
Yeah. Cool. So was this a property? So this wasn't a. Was this a property to keep?
A property to keep, yes. And
Yeah.
I'm currently looking at, it's got a little rumpus room out the back, and South Australia has recently changed its rules in terms of granny flats and things like that. And so I've been on to the council to find out what I can do and can't do, etc. And so when the lease is up in May, I'll be talking to the tenants earlier because I've got a pretty good relationship with them and the manager there about turning it into a granny flat. Um, Probably the tenants aren't paying as much as I would like. It's certainly not market rent presently, because it's just crept up so quick. Well, it hasn't. It's leapt and bound in South Australia in terms of rents, and so they can't really afford what it is, and they might move into the granny flat. So that's a discussion to be held, and then rent out the front room, front house.
Awesome. Fair enough. So obviously, just yeah, by having the granny flat, you increase the yield on the property.
That's right, yeah, and it'll be a hands-off reno. I'll probably get someone in there to, I'll probably project manage it from here and get people on the ground to do it.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, in terms of reno, like I've got a lot of students at the moment wanting to do
Mm.
renos interstate, and they're wanting to do that for their first reno.
Mhm.
But renovation is it's so diverse as in the size. Like you can do a big reno interstate, you can do you can gut the house and you can put it all back
Mm.
together. It sounds like that wasn't the sort of reno you did. Was it a smaller reno? Was it more of a tidy up paint and that sort of thing? Was
It
it
was
or
Yeah, you could say it was probably more of a tidy up, get it a bit more to a livable standard. It could still do with a complete new kitchen and a bathroom refresh. And if the tenants do leave, I will look at that opportunity to do so. Um, and I'm certainly aware that people do interstate flips, but you have to be very organised, I think. And there's a lot of like the renovation and flips that I've done locally, there's a lot of hands-on stuff and decisions made at the time at the property, like how high do you want this, and you know where do you want this spaced, and you make decisions on the go. And yeah, you'd have to have a pretty good project manager interstate, or possibly be a bit cluey. That's not to say you don't have a go, but it could be a lot more challenging than you think.
yeah, I agree, 100%. I think if you're starting out flipping, I mean, I think you can flip anywhere, and 100% I think you can flip interstate. But I think for your first one, there's a lot to learn, and a
Yeah.
lot to be said for being on site and actually learning, actually being
Mm.
on site.
Yeah. Our
Cool.
first full flip was a complete learning experience for both of us.
Was that the next property that you did then?
No, I bought another buy and hold.
Another buy and hold.
I
Talk us
need,
through that one.
yeah, so I did buy one locally. It was about knowing my market, and at the time it was a local one, and I saw it come up, and I thought, oh, that's a good price. Why is that going for that sort of price? And so I thought I better investigate that one. And the tenant or the owner was going into care, and they were looking to turn it over very, very quickly. He'd never painted it, but it was full of carpets that were, because he was going into care, let's just say it was pretty pooey. So there was a little bit of off-putting work involved. So I put an offer in, it got accepted, and I got early access as well, which was terrific. So I was able to get in there and do a bit of a clean-up pretty much immediately. We had a
Yeah.
very short period to, do the work in. And I got a property manager in to do all, the investigation in terms of the rents, etc. And there was a tenant willing to go in the day of settlement, which was a little bit tricky. So we got half the house painted. We got the carpets redone. We did a bit of refresh in one of the bathrooms, etc. So when I talk about 2.5 flips, it's sort of like it's a half flip, because when that tenant left, we went back and did more work. Yeah,
Cool.
so that was a local one, and I've since sold
What
it because
suburb was
the
that in?
market went
What
bleh.
suburb? Sorry, what suburb was that one in, and what year did you do that?
That was also in 2015. So I basically bought two in about 3 months, using the equity in my own home, which is, a really good way to go if you haven't got ready cash. The disadvantage, of course, is if you cross collateralize, and this is where I fell foul, because property market in Greenfield sort of went crashing down for a few years, and I couldn't untangle the properties and for quite a number of years, and so that actually held me back quite considerably, because I had two properties collateralized with my own home. So yeah, it became a little bit tricky, and it definitely held me back in what I could do.
And 2015 was because we had, and anyone that in Perth would know, 2013, 14, 15 was kind of good, and then from
Mm,
15 to 20, late 15 to 20, we just had negative growth.
that's right, yes. And when you have two of your properties going into negative growth, it doesn't really bode well for borrowing power or anything like that. Um, so this first moment that the property started to rise again, I started looking at the potential to uncollateralize them. And I was very fortunate that my South Australia property, that's basically doubled in price. So I was able to easily refinance that one out of the portfolio. So that was terrific news. And then I sold the Greenfields property to the tenant. So
Are you wishing you held the Greenfields one now, considering how much growth that's had
yes,
in the last few years?
yes.
That would have doubled as well.
Yeah, so I made a small profit on it. It wasn't the world's the best profit in the world, but I didn't go backwards either. It took a little while to get that tenant. It was his first time as well, and he'd been there for a couple of years. He was a really good tenant, and the rents were like pretty shitty at the time to try and find somewhere else. So I also looked at, if he had left and I wanted to sell it on the normal market, it really did need to have a proper flip done on it. And so when I did the estimate of, if I wanted to put a new kitchen, if I really wanted to, doll it up and do a proper flip on it, as in my view, I would have had to spend another 35,000 on it. and then pay the agent's commission if I was going to go down that track. And so the opportunity cost of taking the tenant out, taking the time to do the renovation and the cost of that renovation, and then putting it on the market and the settlement period, I was thinking, well, there's a natural advantage in selling it directly to the tenant because I didn't have the commission to worry about. I didn't have to renovate it or any of those other factors. So I think in the end, for the time, it worked out fine.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when did the flipping start?
So we joined the program that we met you with, and we started looking at potential flips at that particular time.
Was that like 2020, 2021? When was that exactly?
Yeah, probably 2019, I think we started. But interestingly enough, we weren't just getting any properties come into our lap. We did a lot of investigation. And by that time, we'd sort of sorted ourselves out financially and were able to support other people in their property flipping journey. So we actually acted as a money partner and learnt a lot through that process. Initially, while we were still putting out offers, looking at real estate agents, talking to real estate agents, doing an awful lot of on the ground running around, inspecting properties, doing FISOs, all of those sorts of things. So we sort of tackled it from two different fronts.
Yep.
We got our big break in 2019 when COVID hit, I suppose, and the property market went, oh! And I went to inspect a property, knew the area really, really well. Once again, in Greenfields, I went and inspected a property. It wasn't for me. But I turned around and there was this for sale sign, and I said to the agent, oh, what about that property? That looks better than this one. She said, oh, the offer's just fallen through. The bank didn't accept it. COVID had just hit. And so I said, well, let's go have a look anyway. And it was literally like within sight of this other property. Went and had a look. We had our offer in that day and it was accepted.
Awesome.
So that was the beginning of our flip journey.
Awesome. So obviously, I've got two questions. Firstly, just before we go on to that flip story, so you said you did it as a money partner first.
Yeah.
So did you have like some sort of agreement with the project partner? So they were teaching you what they were doing. Were you learning from them? Like, did you have like constant communication? Was there any of that sort of stuff, or were you just sort of a silent partner in that relationship?
No, the first money partner that we did, we built a relationship with that particular person. It was all formally done through legal agreements, and I think that's a really important thing to do, to make sure that you do have a proper legal agreement so that everything's understood above board. There's no misunderstanding about how much, how long, what the rates are, what the circumstances are if something falls over, etc. All that is already spelt out, rather than just handshake deals. I don't think that works very well at all. Not a good idea. So the particular lady that we went with, yes, she had a, what do you call it, one of those messenger post groups. And so she was WhatsApp, yeah, whichever the technology was at the time. And she was constantly updating us with information about where she was. That was part of the agreement, that that she would post regularly with where she was at, what decisions were being made, without us actually influencing the decision-making process, as in, oh, I think you should have these tiles instead of those tiles, etc. I think the role of the money partner is not to be that hands-on person. That's the role of the project manager, to do that, to make all of those sorts of decisions.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. And it was a very successful partnership, and we went on to do multiple partnerships with that person very successfully. It's a very trusting environment, and we've still got a really good friendship now as a result of those
Awesome.
continuing relationship building. She was
Yeah,
very
awesome.
communicative. You've got to have a lot of communication. One of the deals didn't go so smoothly, and that's where communication becomes like super, super important, because it was through the COVID period and she had rented the property initially to be prior to renovating, but with COVID hitting, you couldn't take out tenants. And so the time period actually got extended quite extensively. And because of that, it obviously altered. There had to be a variation to contract. The interest paid was obviously going to look a lot more horrendous for that person. And so I think in that particular case, yeah, she took a bit of a haircut, but it was prime. Her prime importance was to make sure that her money partners were looked after and informed the whole time. And
Yeah,
because of
awesome.
that, we still speak to this day, because it's open communication.
Yeah, awesome. So just for clarification, for anyone sort of wondering, exactly what. So with the WhatsApp group, was she just taking photos of, okay, demo's done, post photo of the demo, okay, plumber's been done, set up, cabinets are in
Mhm.
now, tiler's been, so just taking progress photos so you could see exactly the progress of the reno.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So we got regular updates like that, photos, little videos. Um, yeah, so we just had a bit of a concept of how that how that project was progressing at the time, and the speed of what it was taking. Um, and some of the pitfalls and that happen on a day-to-day basis. I suppose it wasn't a daily communication, and I think anyone that demands a daily communication is probably setting themselves up for a bit of um, a, a, an awakening, because you're really, really busy actually trying to manage the job.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so how many times would you have money partnered for that project partner?
I think we've done 4 or 5 with her. We've
Yeah, well,
done 8, I think, altogether with different people.
yeah, okay. So you've definitely been on both sides of the fence. You've money
Mm.
partnered other deals, and you obviously doing your own deals as well.
Yes, yeah. And it's
Cool,
really good to see both sides of the fence.
for sure, for sure. And so your first flip you said was in Greenfields.
Hmm.
Do you want to walk us through that? So we know how you secured it.
Yes.
Talk us through some learnings from that project, and how long it took, and
Hmm.
yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I had initially, it was our first one, and I had initially had a 8-week program where I wanted it to go. It was probably it was a 4x2, very, very tired, um, tired looking. It had a little bit of an unusual layout, and I was a little bit concerned about how we were going to um, configure or stage that layout, because you walked in and it walked straight into like a study area with a big open window. So there was a lot of angst about how that could be made to be, look good. Um, but in terms of the renovation itself, it wasn't a difficult renovation. It was fairly labour intensive, because there was so many add-ons to this property. You couldn't walk through the garden for patio bits falling down, um, little bits of barbed wire and bits of fence, and it was a little bit of work to get rid of all the extraneous bits and bobs that were around. But once we cleaned it up, you could really start to see that it was going to have a really nice yard and be quite attractive. Had a lovely big shed, which is always attractive in this area for the tradies, etc. Had a little games room. So we did a complete gut job of it, removed the ensuite, all the carpets, needed repainting, tiles, etc. The only room that we didn't really touch was the main bathroom, because it was actually in quite sound condition. It was blue, and it had a blue bath and it had some blue tiles, etc., etc. But it was actually in really, really good condition. It had nice glass shower screens that were fairly new, etc. So we didn't really want to spend too much money there. So what we
Yep.
did was tidy it up. We regrouted, and that just made all the difference to the look of the property, to that particular room, because it went from, like, the dirty grey grout to nice shiny white grout, and we put a new vanity and a new mirror, and it just looked like a new bathroom.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Our challenge with that one was, it had a big tree leaning over the house, and when we removed the tree, we found a nice hole in the roof, and it had leaked a little bit. So we did need to do some ceiling repairs and uh, some roof repairs that were a little bit more extensive than what we had initially planned. But that was okay. We still managed. And our numbers, I'm a bit of I suppose what you call a numbers Nazi, because if I've got my numbers sorted out, I don't want to go over my renovation budget. So I'm constantly, okay, so this is costing a little bit more. How can I pull back on another area so that it makes sense? So, buying secondhand if you can, but still new, or buying something off Gumtree and, those sorts of places works. And just finding any sort of shortcut I could to still produce the goods and still stay within budget.
What would that reno cost you?
I did I pulled them up the other day because I'd forgotten, and it cost me $39,307. So I was
Awesome.
pretty happy.
Has renovation costs gone up since then?
A little bit, but not much, because I guess I'm pretty clever at how to pull it together these days.
Yeah. Cool. Can you remember what sort of profit you were sort of chasing for that deal, and did you get what you were chasing?
Uh, as our first deal, it was a little bit tricky actually to get an end sale price, because it was in the middle of COVID had just started, and it was like properties were like going stupid prices. It was just, heading downwards more or less. And so there was a little bit of fear mongering, I suppose, out in the media world and things like that. And we were very uncertain as to how it was going to end up at the end of the day. Our goal at that time was to just get it out there and get it sold, so that we didn't get stuck with a property that we didn't want. Um, and the property prices at the time were about 270 for a sale, 280-ish. But by the time we finished, we sold it for 315, and I was really happy with that. We made a profit of about 35,000, and we were very happy with that as well, given the circumstances.
Sure.
Mm,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Um, so just a question. So obviously, a lot of people prices started to tank at COVID because I suppose because there was that uncertainty. Everyone thought,
Mm.
people saying the property market was going to crash. How come you had the confidence to do a deal at that time?
I think because the property was so cheap, and I knew that um, the skill that we were going to bring, and the value that we were going to bring to that property, and keeping within budget, would be able to put it back into the market and still return us a profit. But I guess that first one was also about getting rungs on the board,
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
and showing and proving to ourselves that we had the skill set to do it, and we could do it within a time frame and within budget. We wanted a profit, definitely, and because there was no point in doing it if you didn't have a profit. But in terms of the amount of profit, that was probably a little bit more negligible, I suppose. We were aiming for at least 30 on that first one, and we ended up with 35. But importantly, I think we put it in my hubby's name because of his capital loss previously, and we were able to completely wipe out that
Okay.
loss.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the advice of your accountant then.
That was the advice of the accountant, yes. And obviously, entity, whatever you put your property in, the entity is really, really important because it has huge implications at the other end.
100%. Cool. All right. So you did your first flip. Obviously, that gave you the confidence. You were happy with the outcome. And so after that, you've done a couple more flips. How did they, whereabouts were they? I know you did one in Kubala.
That was our next one.
Cool. Talk
Yes,
us
I
through
was.
that one.
Yeah, I was keeping an eye on a couple of markets beyond my own suburb and trying to be an area expert, I suppose, in a couple of different ones. And so I was following the Kublai market for a little while. I had written to a lot of people in the area as well and had meetings with prospective sellers. They didn't eventuate into actual deals, but that was good experience. But one day we were out visiting, a prospective property through a letter drop, and a house happened to be open, and we thought, let's just go and have a look at some various homes that were open that particular day. And so this one popped up on the list, and we went and had a look, and I thought, oh, I'd love to get this one. This one would be a really cool one to do a renovation on. It was opposite a park, had a really nice amenity about and a good feel about the property as well. Not that you should go with your gut, but I knew if we could get this one at the right price, then that would be, a real winner. My husband decided to add an extra 20K to our offer, and I had kittens because that wasn't what my numbers were saying on the back of the envelope. And he was going, no, trust that the prices are rising in this area, and they definitely were, and so we went with it, and to mitigate, I suppose, any potential issue, we decided that we would rent the property for a short time to allow a little bit of uplift to occur to make it better at the other side. So
Okay.
that's
So,
what we
so
did.
you actually
We
would
got
have
our
done
offer accepted.
Okay, cool. So you did you rented it out prior to doing the renovation then?
We had to do a little bit of a tidy up, but not too much. So yeah, we spent about $5,000 just doing some very basic bits and pieces just to get it rented. We rented it then for the next 7 or 8 months. Our issue came in trying to get rid of the bloody tenant though, and we actually had to go down an eviction process because all of
What happened
my
there?
she just wouldn't leave.
Even though her lease was over and you weren't renewing it.
Yes, yeah. So she knew that it was going to be a lease and it wasn't going to be renewed. Um, I had lined up all my trades basically for this is when the lease is ending, this is when we're starting, had it all worked out, etc. And she would not budge, wouldn't budge at all. So then we had to go down the eviction route, which was very frustrating to say the least, particularly, ringing up trying to get trades, lining them all up, and then having to say, oh, I can't get you in now because all their work programs were scheduled as well. And I was using a lot of the trades from my first flip as well. So anyway, so we rang them all, etc. Went through that process, went through the eviction process, and eventually she did. It took us probably another 2 months of frustrating backwards and forwards in the courts and all the rest of it. But she did leave, and of course we didn't know exactly when she was going to leave, so I had to reorganise at the last minute once we knew that she'd actually left all my trades again. So it just threw everything out the window. It pushed us to close to Christmas to start the reno, which of course was very challenging because a lot of the trades were not available. But anyway, we worked through it. We had some Christmas holidays and we did a lot of hard yards ourselves while we were waiting for the trades to reschedule, etc.
Cool. So
And
was that Christmas 21 that you did that one?
yes.
Yeah, okay. And
Mm.
so did you get a bit of growth in that from having it in the 7 or 8 months, having her in there?
Oh,
Did
yes.
that like
Yes, we
what's
certainly
that?
did. Yeah, it was a good strategy to rent, even though we did have those issues. Um, it was a very good idea to rent in that particular circumstance. The market lifted considerably, and once we had completed our reno and got it on the market, etc., we made a really good uplift.
Cool. What did you profit on that one then?
So we profited just about 85 grand on it, plus the rent that we received.
Awesome.
So wasn't too bad a job at the end of the day.
Awesome. And so what did the reno on that one cost you in Kubi?
I was really really proud of my reno budget for that one. It cost us 38,000
Very
for
good.
and that was a complete renovation, complete gut job. It was very old school. Um, had a lot of guttering and roof works that we did as well on that one. And the unexpected pleasure of this particular property was trying to negotiate with the landowner next door, because the back fence was a picket fence and had barbed wire through it. It was all falling down, causing it just looked disgusting. And that particular landowner was like, yeah, happy to have the fence changed. And then he changed his mind and didn't want it changed at all. We said, well, we'll pay for it full 100%. Oh, no, I don't want to change the fence. And I was like, bloody hell, haven't had, you'd think that someone be willing to change a falling down fence that they don't have to pay for. But no, he didn't want to do that. And so our learning through that was to do everything by the books, because you've got fencing laws, local government bits and pieces. So we had to follow it to the letter of the law about giving notice to that person about what we were going to do. And yeah, eventually we put up the fence without his agreement, but because we had followed that process precisely, we were able to do so. And it made a big difference at the end of the day, because it was a completely unsafe fence.
Awesome. Cool. There you go. Okay, so that was your second one. And when was the next flip?
So the next flip was last year, again, fairly local, just watching the market, getting a feel for a different suburb. And I saw this one come up. It had come up before, and I wasn't really interested in the location, and it was too high price. But it came on as a second chance and a much lower price. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll go and have a look this time around. And so I did. And at that time, the owners were pretty disappointed that the previous deal had fallen over. Again, bank finance was difficult for whoever had put that offer on. And we had the cash at that time, and we made an immediate cash offer for very quick settlement, which is what they were wanting, was the quick settlement. And that
Okay.
was accepted straight away, and off we went.
There you go. So you've done three flips, and all three of them were purchased on market. Then,
They were, yes.
yeah. Is there so obviously any reason why you've sort of focused on that? Have you done any sort of have you looked for deals off market, or you've just always mainly focused on market?
I look at both. It's certainly more challenging at the moment to get anything on market because of the complete demand for it. But we've always continued to write letters to people, do visits, have discussions. We just haven't got one over the line.
Yeah, fair
And
enough. Okay,
yeah,
cool. So that third one, where was that? Was that Secret Harbor or something?
that was in Meadow Springs.
Meadow Springs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I put the offer on without seeing my partner in the process. I knew it would be a pretty good deal, and said, this is the one that we're putting an offer on, etc. He hadn't seen it, and the offer got accepted. And when he came around, he goes, oh my God, this one's going to be terrible, because yeah, it backed onto an industrial road, and I knew that would be a buyer objection right at the very beginning. So my end sale price was going to reflect that it could be a potentially lower price, but we got the property for a really good price too. But there was a property across the road and it had rubbish everywhere. It was, one of those hoarder house type of things, with tyres and rubbish and all sorts of stuff. It did not present well or bode well for our particular property at all. But through the time, we like to sort of get their neighbours on board with what we're doing. Always talk to the neighbours, say what we're doing, etc., etc. And anyway, with this particular property across the road, I had advertised the carpet that was in our property for free. I just wanted it got rid of, and it was in pretty good nick, but just shocking colour and inappropriately placed from the front door, etc. We didn't want that carpet. So I advertised it, and a lady came over and said, "Oh, I'd love that carpet." I said, "Great, where do you live?" She said, "Across the road." And she was this hoarder house with all the rubbish. And I thought, oh, my God. And she sent her big Maori boys across the road, and they pulled up all the carpet and took it across the road. And then the Maori boys came and pulled up all the carpet strips, etc. So that was a job that I didn't have to do. And when we got talking, etc., and she said, "Oh, I've got a lazy so-and-so husband." And I said, "Oh, that's okay, whatever. If we're going to the tip, you can put some stuff on our trailer or whatever." So we just made our trailer available, and the house got cleaned up. All the rubbish went. We took the tyres away for her because we knew she didn't have any money. We took the tyres to the tip, just paid for it. The whole front yard got tidied up, and having those relationships with the neighbours really did help.
Awesome. I actually had a funny story just recently. The one I just sold most recently in Parmelia, the guy next door was a bit of a hoarder, and so I actually bought all of his junk off him just to. Well, I knew that would help my sale, so I just went and said, "Mate, how much do you want for it all?" Gave him $400 just to fill up a 10-cube skip bin of junk that he had in his yard. So just talk to him and find out, and what's that? Obviously, it makes it a lot easier selling your house if you don't have that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we weren't put off by, the neighbourhood looking less than pretty. At the end of the day, basically most of the neighbours they were tidying up their yards. They could see what we were doing to our property, and they were taking pride then in what they were doing in their particular properties. We helped a couple of the neighbours out, and so then they were taking a vested interest, I suppose, because they could see that, if we could lift the value of our property when it sold, it was going to do good for the whole street.
For sure.
And
cool. And so, did you have a good outcome on that property?
We sure did. So we made 90 grand on that one.
Perfect. Well done.
Yep. And that was a 8-week turnover. So I was pretty happy with that one.
Cool. And when was that one? Was that end of last year? That
was the end of last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Okay. And so awesome. So 3 successful flips, a couple of investment properties as well that you've renovated, and then you've also jumped into the rooming house space as well.
Yes.
So you converted a 4x2 into a 6x4.
Yes, it was technically, I suppose, a 5x2, but the rooms were quite a reasonable size. It had 3 living areas, and so we thought this one's probably got some possibility for rooming house capability, and had a really good floor plan, and so we converted it to a 6x2. The games room became another bedroom, and the 2 bathrooms, because it was a really good size.
6x4 you converted it to, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you would have had a bit of growth on that property too then since you bought that one, hey? Because where did you buy that? I know it's in the Rockingham area, isn't it?
It's in the city of Rockingham. In, where is it? It's Port Kennedy.
Port Kennedy? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So
and we have had growth. We've been able to refinance, and that's assisted us with the new build that we're doing.
Okay, awesome. So you've got 6 tenants in that one, all
Mhm.
paying, yeah, paying individually.
They're all individual leases, and that's the beauty of it, because a single residential property, one lease, they go, if it's 4 weeks before you can get someone, you've got a 4 week vacancy, etc. The rooming house, obviously, if one tenant goes, you've still got another 5 tenants paying rent.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Cool. So I mean, so even with the rooming houses, even with the interest rates increasing,
Mm.
is it still good cash flow? Is it still making good return for
I,
you?
I probably would say it's not making as good cash flow now with the interest rate rises, that's for sure. Um, but the second one, I think, will be a lot better as a new build. The depreciation on that, etc., will also assist, and the rates will be a lot better because it's a new build.
Yeah. Okay. So 6 by 6 is a new build.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
obviously
so
you
we're
can get a bit
all out.
better. So obviously you can get a little bit better rates as well because everyone's got their own bathroom that's living in it.
Yes, that's right. When you've got shared bathrooms, you're always going to get a lower rent.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So what made you go down the rooming house? Is why that strategy?
I think there's a huge need. Like, the demand for it is enormous. I'm not so familiar with the other states, but here in West Australia, our vacancy rate is like next to nothing,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of people taking up. Probably doesn't sound right, but when you've only got two people in a large house, for example, there's a lot of space that could be utilised for better, for a family with kids, etc. So having a rooming house where it's a single person, it frees up family homes for families, I suppose. But I think there's also, on a personal level, I've had to knock on doors to find rent, somewhere to live. And it's really, really hard when there's nothing there at all. Um, and so being able to have affordable accommodation is just really, really, really critical. And this enables people to have affordable accommodation and high quality accommodation.
Yeah.
And so it meets a couple of those values that we hold, quite dearly. Um, Over
Yeah.
55s, ladies, they have such enormous difficulties getting, decent rentals, um, being able to afford to buy another property, if they've left their family home, etc. And so, yeah, having affordable, quality, safe housing is really, really, really important. So that's really what's led us down this track.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. I think obviously rents are only going to getting more expensive everywhere, Australia wide, and like you said, there's low rental vacancy rates everywhere,
Mm,
so very difficult for people to get anything anyhow. But I mean, you've got in Perth, you've got FIFO workers who really handy for those
mm,
guys. You like you said, you've got single people they just can't get their own rental.
mm.
You've got people coming out of relationship breakdowns where they need to get accommodation quickly. So there's absolutely a need for it, no question about it.
Absolutely. And West Australia is going gangbusters. The amount of work that's here, that's another potential tenant, people that have come in for 6 months on contract or something like that. And, they don't want to have to bring all their furniture and things. They just come with their toothbrush and move straight in.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a good point. So that all the two rooming houses you have, you completely furnish them, don't you?
They're fully furnished. Yeah.
Yeah. So beds in there, wardrobe. You've
Ev-
got their own little desk, toilet, bathroom. Yeah,
Everything, down to knives and forks and salt and pepper and everything that you could wish for.
yeah. Cool, cool, awesome. I had a couple of questions. I had a question from Facebook before from Karen. She was
Mhm.
Karen Ball, and she was asking, "Is the rooming house is that more your strategy now rather than flipping, or what's your strategy going forward? Is it just a combination of everything? What are your plans for 2024?"
24, we've got some offers on potential flips. Flips are really good for chunk deals, paying down. debt, etc. Getting into the rooming house market isn't, a cheap operation, and so you have to look at your serviceability. So yeah, we're continuing with the flip process. Definitely, I'd like to do a couple of more of those this year. But we're looking at potential commercial property or Airbnb, whatever is, whatever the opportunity, presents itself, really.
Yeah, okay, awesome. A couple of other questions regarding your uh, Mazadik. One question here, he said, do you know what the rules are around granny flats in South Australia? I think that was from you earlier. You mentioned you're looking at putting a granny flat on your South Australia property. Is that something you've
Mm.
looked into, or is it something you are looking into at the moment?
I'm looking into it at the moment. My understanding is that you need a minimum 600 square metre lot size, and you'd probably need planning permission or building permission from your local council. So I would suggest that you certainly contact your local council and see what they say. Um, I, they might have their own local laws that could influence. So it's usually best to, give them a call and get the lowdown.
But as a planning officer, that would be pretty easy work for you to investigate.
It's every state is different, so the language is different and the rules are very different. So while I have an understanding of what goes on in the other states, you still do need to do full and proper due diligence.
Awesome, cool. A couple more questions regarding the. Do you suggest a good rooming house conversion company? Well, I know you went through HMO in WA,
Mm,
but again, depending on what state you're in, is going to determine who to
mm.
go through.
Exactly, and every state different rules for the rooming houses. They have different number of tenants. Uh, some local councils charge you for the pleasure of having one of these types of homes. You really, really do need to ensure that you have an understanding of what that particular state requirements are, and yeah, do a lot of investigation. It's certainly not the cheapest way to go, and you could be, if you're unaware of the fire requirements and the insurance requirements that go with these sorts of houses and the additional costs that go into it, as the landlord, you pay for the water and the electricity and the internet, and some of them have cleaners and other things. It's not a standard rental. So do your due diligence and crunch your numbers.
Awesome, cool. All right, and then he's got one more question as well. Do you go commercial or residential valuation on rooming houses?
Uh, So ours have got commercial valuations on them because the bank considers it as a commercial.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Okay, cool. There was one other question on Facebook regarding when you're flipping and insurances.
Mm-hmm.
And the question was, how do you navigate that during the renovation process? So I think what they're trying to say is, what sort of insurance policy do you have when you're flipping houses?
Mm. So it's always good to check with your particular insurer to make sure that they cover properties while they're vacant. They have different periods, so yeah, be aware of that, and have a chat to them. If you're in the game of flipping and you're in and out very, very quickly, you might be able to assure them that it's not going to be vacant for very long at all. But if you're planning to have it vacant for a year, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I think one thing that surprised me not that long ago is that some insurance companies, if you don't look into it, if it's over 60 days vacant, you're not covered. And the funny
Mm,
thing is, you can go on holiday for 3 months overseas, and if they found out that it's been vacant for more than 60 days, then you might not be covered, which is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Well,
So,
our second deal, we were living in it part time anyway because it was a little bit further away. So we lived in it every weekend while we were doing it. So it was definitely occupied.
yeah, right there you go. That's it. I mean, look, I know with Amy, I think their policy is that, I mean, I use them sometimes, but obviously anyone listening, do your own due diligence. But they've got a policy. I think if it's over 60 days, then you've got to let them know, and you pay like an additional sort of cost or something like that, as far as like your excess or something like that. So, but otherwise, as long as you're living in it, for yeah, after that 60 days is when you had that sort of that hurdle. So, but yeah, a lot of places won't touch you if it's classified as structural renovation, whereas
Mm.
cosmetic is so you've sort of got to, when you're chatting to them, make sure that it's whether it's cosmetic reno, whether it's structural, and then
Yeah.
obviously if it's a bigger reno, more structural stuff, then you definitely need some sort of construction
Mm.
insurance policy.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And don't be afraid to pay a little bit more for the insurance or an excess or something, because it's not worth not having insurance.
100%. Couldn't agree
Mm.
more. Awesome. All right. Well, we really appreciate having this chat, Lisa. I mean, obviously we're both from Perth. We've met in person a few times at
Mm.
different events and that sort of thing. Yeah, I suppose last question is, so next year you said you're planning on doing a couple more flips and that. What else is your plan going forward? Is it just two rooming houses, or the strategy going forward? Is it what are you planning on doing? I mean, you work in planning. Do you plan on doing
Yeah.
development in the future? Like, have you got any? Yeah, what's going to be your
I
journey to?
always look out for subdivision potential. Our Kubelat property had subdivision potential, but it was not worth doing the subdivision at the time. The numbers didn't stack up, and I suppose, yeah, I'm always looking for a reno, knock down, build type of opportunity, and potentially some more holds. Our strategy is to try and get passive income so that we can retire in reasonable comfort in the future. We're not starting off as spring chickens in this game. Um, and yeah, reno strategy is great, but it's also hard work, if you're going to be on the tools doing it. And as much as I like doing the reno strategy, we're also looking at creating passive income into the future. So that could be our self-managed super fund, that might house a rooming house down the track, um, as well. So it's about lining up the ducks in the right order, um, and
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
something that I think is important so that you don't get stuck from a serviceability, or you can get funds from elsewhere through money partners or joint ventures and those sorts of things.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Um, what I mean, so you said before as well with the flipping that you'll use that money to pay down some other debt on some other investment properties. Is that the way of obviously getting rid of that debt, so that way you you've got that passive income? Is that the theory behind that?
Yeah, it's about reducing our loan to value ratio with the banks. My husband's almost at retirement age, basically. And so, yeah, we definitely have to look at paying down the debt. We want to have more properties in our portfolio. And if we can do a flip and keep it as such, that would be ideal. But you've got to also have a strategy to how you pay down that debt.
For sure.
And so
Awesome.
flips are part of that process.
Awesome. Last question before I let you
Sure.
go. What would be you said you didn't get into this as a spring chicken. What would be your advice to anybody else who's not a spring chicken and looking to get into property deals?
Go for it, for starters, but do get some education behind you. It's a really interesting game to be part of, and you can do really, really well at it. Um, and so, yeah, I certainly know plenty of people that are retired, and they've got nothing, and they start off in this game. So it's definitely have a go.
Awesome. Awesome, Lisa. Look, really appreciate again you having a chat. Yeah, yeah. Good luck
It's been
with
fun.
everything that you got going on, and yeah, hope you have a big year in 2024. And yeah, look forward to seeing the photos and the updates on the latest rooming house once it starts getting tenants early next year.
It will be early next year, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you, Graham.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
And to everybody out there listening,
Thank you. See you later.
see you, Graham.